Today I'm gonna take you with me while I replace the spark plugs on my 2008 Nissan 350Z. This is the HR motor, and I was actually looking to figure out what I need to do to replace the spark plugs, and I couldn't really find anything good out there, so I figured I would take you with me while I do it. You know, some of the basic things you're gonna need that I can obviously think of for right this second. I've never done this, so this will be my first time, and so I'm going to take you with me. That way, hopefully it can help someone else out when they're doing theirs. So it's a 6-cylinder, 6 spark plugs. The manual for mine says it takes iridium, so I got NGK iridiums. And then also, I was looking over the car, and it looks like you're going to have to take the throttle bodies off of the car. So these are new gaskets for that. They're basically just made out of rubber, but with the 150,000 miles that's on my car, I wasn't sure if they were going to be any good or not, so I went and got them. This is the part number that I got off the internet, and the dealership confirmed, so it's 16175-JK21A. I think there's a 20A, not sure if there's a difference. Obviously when I take the throttle bodies off I'll figure it out. But I got these just in case the ones that are on there are a little bit crumbly. This car has dual intakes, so if you do end up needing to replace them, there's 2 of them. Obviously you're going to need basic tools to be able to work on this. As far as we have to take off this cover, strut brace, we have to take off both of the air intakes. And then once we get down in there, we're going to have to take off the throttle bodies, which cover up the last coil pack down there, which would give you access to the spark plug. Alright, so basically what I'm going to do to start this is I'm going to get in there, unplug the battery, since we're going to be messing with some electrical stuff, and then we can move forward with that. Alright, so we're going to get started in here. I'm going to take off the battery terminal. That way, since we're going to be messing with the throttle body, I've had issues before where I messed with the throttle bodies. This was on a different car, but I messed with the throttle body and didn't unplug it, and it actually messed up the TPMS sensor, and I had to buy a new one. So just to be safe, messing with electrical stuff, unplug the battery. We should be good to go on that front. And then we are going to work on taking off all of these covers and the strut bar. So the strut tower takes 14mm bolts, well, 14mm socket, and it has 4 bolts. So we are gonna take those off. Try to do your best not to lose one of the bolts like I just did, so I'll have to go and fish that out. It's always nice to have one of these grabber tools on hand. So I dropped this bolt here, and this car has underbody panels everywhere, so I was able to get that. Normally if they don't have underbody panels, you can just get right to them from the ground as they'll fall through. So I've got these harnesses I have to undo on this side. So I have a little puller tool. so that side is off. This side. Looks like it's going to be more tricky. Let's see. Try not to bust these clips all up, so that way they'll go back in. So, well, I guess that one doesn't have to come off, just this one over here, which I have no idea how it comes off. So we will see. That back. This one is going to come off. It looks like this whole assembly comes up. So that's interesting. Looks like there's just a little tab right here, and you kind of pull up on it and it just slides off. Super basic, but like I said, I've never done it before, so let's lift up on this. Let's see if we can't take the strut brace out. Set that off to the side, and then we have 10mm bolts, and it looks like there's 2, 4, 6 of them for this plastic intake cover. So, take these off. See, these are basically like some kind of capped nut. I've seen them before, but don't lose those. We have that one. And these two in the center are just little bolts with a washer, but it looks like the washer doesn't come off. Alright, so it looks like that one wants to stay in there, which is fine. And so this is obvious. I guess this comes off in 2 pieces, so I didn't know that. So I'm just setting all these parts aside in a good spot to make sure they don't get lost. And I missed the center one. So looks like there's 7 total. Okay, so now we're down to the intake plenum, and we need to take off the air intake tubes for both sides. So I'm going to assume that they are not 10 millimeter. Looks like they're going to be a good old-fashioned 8 millimeter. Loosen that up. And then we are going to have to take this exhaust gas tube off of here, which they didn't make them super easy to access. So let's see if we can take these off. We'll take that one off. This one looks like it has 2 clips on this side. This one we're just going to take off. We're just going to loosen this one clip for now, because this one's all turned around and I can't get to it. That's why, you know, when you're taking stuff apart and you're reinstalling it, kind of got to make sure you kind of think ahead on that. Because now, instead of just unpinching it here, I have to unpinch it here, unbolt it here, then take it off, and then I can undo that. So this little top bolt is 10 millimeter. Take that out. Wiggle that way. Unhook that one. Unhook this one. What I'm going to do for now is stick this back in that hole. Not a whole lot of space in here. Get this exhaust gas tube off. Slid off of the intake easier. I mean off the, whatever it is, head. Like we have some mass airflow starting to take off. I'm going to unplug that one. Unplug this one. Got some more of these tension clips on here, so just making sure that I can get those off, because we're going to end up taking this whole thing out of here. That way we don't have to worry about it. So that looks like a $10mm bolt that holds on the air filter housings. Hopefully we should be able to slide these out of here. So they just have little tension pieces that go down to the bottom. So we have one of them out. Second one out. Alright, so we're back. I had to change into some different clothes. It's a little hot in here. No air conditioning. So I was looking over everything. It looks like we're going to have to take off this PCV tube that's covering this cylinder over here, this coil pack. This looks like it's not going to be able to come out as easy. We're going to try and take that off, that way we can wiggle it out of the way. So now we can unbolt the throttle bodies. I'm not going to unplug them, I'm just going to unbolt them and kind of just shift them out of the way the best I can, because there's a bunch of lines hooked up to them. So far as I can see, there's two lines that hook up to the bottom, and then you have obviously the electrical connection. So we're just going to do that because all we need to do is unplug the coil packs and then unbolt them, and then they should pop out, and then we can mess with the spark plug. So we're going to start on this side, and then obviously we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. To take the throttle body off, it has Allen keyed bolts. So I'm actually going to try and use this T30. Torx is sometimes compatible with some Allen wrench sizes, so I have some of these that fit a socket instead of an actual Allen wrench, but you could use just an Allen wrench and you would be fine. You just have to make sure you have one long enough to get into all of these spaces. Alright, so we're just going to tackle one side at a time, but like I said, I'm just going to try and finagle this, that way we don't have to keep messing with it. I don't have to unplug a bunch of stuff and then plug stuff back in. Looks like I should be able to move it around a little bit better if I just pop off this one tension clip down here that's holding some wires on. So let's go ahead and take that off. Alright, so that's off. Again, some of these wires are movable, so we're just going to prop this guy just out of the way for now. So, starting with the first coil pack, we are going to unplug these guys. Let's see how they come out. Again, I've never done this, so I know. But I'm going to start with this one that I can see a little bit better. Alright, so we're back. I just had to take a minute to try to figure that out. I don't like forcing things so we don't break anything. We break those little clips and then it is not easy to replace them. So I took my time and I got all of these popped off. It looks like the best method is there's a little tab there. Technically the tab is supposed to pop up and then they'll slide off, but I kind of just put two screwdrivers, flatheads, on each side and kind of, you know, just twisted them in it, and then they kind of pop loose. Didn't break anything, but I think on the other side what I'm going to try to do is stick a very small flathead in there. I tried using a pick, but I couldn't get it quite right, so I'm going to stick a very small flathead in there, pry up, because there's just a little notch that you have to slide over, and then they pop right off. So take your time, don't break those, because once they break, you know, you could be riding down the road, you know, after a few days, weeks, months, whatever, and they rattle loose, and then you're getting a misfire, and you have to pull all this off just to get to these, because this is not easy to access like some stuff, like American cars sometimes. Well, not necessarily American, but older cars are much easier to access, so, you know, this is more of a process. So now we're going to take we're going to unbolt the coil packs. They're all bolted to the valve covers. So I'm going to assume we need an extension plus probably a 10mm. That looks right. So let's see if we can get this one first. I am going to try and undo this one piece here because it's kind of in the way. Maybe we'll just try to work around it. I hate pulling a bunch of wires off because if you're not careful, you can easily forget to put them back. So basically, we're going to get down in here. Alright, so basically the process I'm going to take is one at a time. I unplugged out all of the ones on this one side one at a time, but beyond that I'm going to just take them one at a time and take the spark plug out, replace it, examine it, that way you know if anything's going wrong, and then put everything back. So we're going to continue in that process. But once you take the bolt out, you should be able to grab a hold of this, just give it a light wiggle, and voila, there's your first one. So we're going to do that, and then we have to do the challenge of getting the spark plug out. So spark plug plus extension, and if I'm not mistaken, we use one of these new plugs to test the size before I go sticking it way down in there, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, they are a 14mm as far as I know. That seems to be a good size. It fits, but I don't have a 14mm spark plug socket, and they're kind of far down in there. So ideally what would be best is if you had a spark plug socket to grab a hold of the spark plug before you know, take it off. That way, because course, this line here is in the way. Just trying to make sure I don't strip anything. Last thing I need to do is strip anything related to the block. So if I can move this line here, hopefully this is not too important. So all I do, I'm not going to pull that off, I just unbolted it so I can slide it over. That way I can get a clean angle on my spark plug. So as far as I know, looking at the new spark plugs, they have a long thread on them. So we're just here to make sure that they are loose, and then the next act is to hopefully have some tube. This is some fuel line or whatever, maybe some evap line, but this is, I believe, 5/16 inside diameter to try to fit around the spark plug down there to get it out. So this is about 6 inches of tube, and it appears to be long enough. The problem is going to be you got to get it on there, around there, and boom. So basically, you get it on there, and you can pull it out, and we're going to do the exact same thing with the new one that's going in. Again, don't drop these. If you drop this porcelain here and you break it, it's going to be a no good. And yeah, so basically I'm going to just examine this spark plug, and we'll go from there on that. Alright, so I just wanted to kind of go over this. I'm assuming these are the factory spark plugs, as when I looked them up, this is pretty much the number. So let's see if we can get that on camera. Denso FXE22HR11. So they also say iridium on there, and you can see they kind of look the same, but this is what I was talking about, this long thread base. So if you want to replace them with the Denzos, you can still get those, obviously, but I went ahead and got the NGKs, and they look very similar, made in Japan, just like these. So not sure what the difference is. I'm sure they're pretty much the same price though. So yeah, after examining this, doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look like it's fairly new. These are probably the originals. Iridiums are supposed to last quite a long time. Let's see if it'll focus in on that. So you can see this tip is still not too bad. So we're going to get out a new spark plug. So this is new, totally new, and this part number is NGK DIL KAR 7B11. And so again, these are iridium as well. And yeah, basically what I'm going to do is put some anti-seize on this threads, on the threads. It's going to be a good idea to do that. That way, you know, technically these plugs are supposed to last well over 100,000 miles. So if they're in there for a long time, you don't want them seizing up to the block. Maybe if you're taking them in and out all the time, that might not be such a big deal. But we're going to go ahead and put some on there anyways, regardless. And then we are going to move forward with putting it back into the engine. Okay, so what I did was I put some on these lower threads. It says basically not to get any near these threads towards the block, but you know, that's totally up to you. And we're gonna go ahead and use our rubber hose to get the spark plug down in there safely and hopefully start the threads on it. That way we don't cross thread. So, got it locked into our rubber hose and we're good to go. Okay, so it seems like we've got it threaded. What I'm going to do is take my extension with my socket and start to try to thread it without the ratchet. So basically what I like to do is thread it all the way down. That way you know for sure that you are good to go. So we got it down there, seems like it's snugging up, and let's see what we can do. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe these have to be torqued down. I am going to look up the torque spec right now, and I'll tell you that. Alright, so I've got one of these Haynes manuals. It's supposed to be for the 2003, 2000 through 2008 350Z and G35. They're pretty similar platforms. So I recommend that if you're going to do a lot of work on your car, you might want to get these. It would really help you out with some of the basics. Obviously, it's not going to give you every little thing as far as details because there's some variance between the different models and stuff like that, but it'll give you a good basis and you can get yourself started underway. But if you look here, it says 350Zs. The 2004 and later models is supposed to be 20. Let's see, they express it in inch pounds, so 216 inch pounds, which, you know, we're going to go ahead and I think it says if anything under 15 foot-pounds is expressed in inch pounds. So 216 inch pounds. Let's see if we can do that calculation. Alright, so they put it at 18 foot-pounds, which, I don't know, for some reason the book says anything expressed in inch pounds is less than 15 foot-pounds, but that's really not how this came out. So like I said, you're going to have to just do some thinking. I'm assuming maybe because this 252, I don't know, whatever, I don't know. But 216 came out, 216 divided by 12, 12 inch pounds equals 1 foot-pound. And so 216 came out to 18 foot-pounds or 216 inch pounds. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to tighten these by hand. And, you know, we should be okay. Just use your good judgment. 18 foot-pounds is not a lot, but yeah, it's kind of one of those middle grounds. When you start doing stuff like this, you're going to have to accumulate more torque wrenches, which I don't have right now. So let's move forward. Oh, also, I forgot to mention those Haynes manuals. I got that one off of Amazon. So if that's something that interests you, I'm going to see if I can stick a link in the description. I got it off Amazon. It was like 25 bucks, something like that. So basically, I'm just using my judgment to snug it down. I'm not cranking from here, I'm cranking from up here. Get you less torque. And then we should be able to put the coil pack / spark plug boot back on. Each one of these, this is a coil pack, spark plug boot. They're built together on this kind of car, this Nissan 350Z. So what I did was just put a tiny amount of dielectric grease in there, and we're going to go ahead and stick it back on. And we will roll with that. Kind of makes it slide on and off easier, which is what I want. So we're going to go back, get our bolt that holds the coil pack on. Take our extension. Main thing you have to do is get this stuff threaded properly, because the valve covers here are plastic. So you don't want to over tighten, and you also obviously don't want to cross thread. So alright, so put that back on, give it a light snug, and since I'm done with that front one, before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and put these bolts back in whatever this was. Kind of seems like it might be something for the air conditioning, but I don't know. So, snugging that down. Alright, now we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, so take this out again. Okay, so I went ahead and put my dielectric grease on that, getting over here to this again. We are breaking this one loose. And we're going to unthread, unscrew by hand. Take our PVC or our rubber hose, slide it down in there. Take out our spark plug. That's the second one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this process and spare you the boring parts. We're just going to do the same process for this whole side, and then we're going to start to reassemble, and we'll catch up there. Alright, so put the last spark plug in, and like I said, this gasket right here for the throttle body, these are the original ones. Looks like they're made out of a reddish orange rubber. I don't know if you necessarily need to replace these. To be honest, these still look pretty good. So what I might do is put the original ones in there. I mean, put the new ones in there, and just keep the old ones as a backup. But you know, it's totally up to you whether you want to replace them or not. The only thing you have to be concerned about is so this is a nice shiny new black one versus the orange that's in there. The black one looks like it might be a wee bit bigger. I don't know, maybe it's just smashed down. It could just be smashed down. So I guess the only thing you really need to concern yourself with is if you don't replace it, there could be a leak, a vacuum leak there. Basically just caused by the fact that it is an old gasket. So I already bought them. Just to be safe, we're going to go ahead and replace them. And these aftermarket ones look like they fit perfectly. There's that little tab. It just helps you line them up right here against that. So what we're going to do now that everything is done, we are going to plug everything back up. Plug up your spark plug up your coil packs, and we're going to go from there and move this PCV line back into place. And again, we're just trying to make sure that we are not missing anything as we put everything back together. That's the critical part. Not missing anything as you're putting stuff back together. So just be extra careful, examine, make sure everything's okay. So double check yourself. All my plugs are snapped in. So I'm going to take my throttle body, move it back over, clip that in, and get my bolts for the throttle body. Alright, so we are going to just put this back together. Basically all I wanted to say for this one, for this part, was just to make sure that when you are snugging down the throttle body, tighten, make sure it's in place, kind of hold it there, and we are going to kind of tighten things down in a crisscross kind of pattern. Same thing you would do with your lug nuts and stuff like that, but we just want to make sure there's an even snug on everything up here, because we are seating against that rubber O-ring, and we want to make sure that everything seats properly. That way you don't have a leak. So again, I don't think these things need to be extremely tight, because we do not want to strip the bolts or the nut, or whatever you want to call it, the threads that are on the intake side. So, looking over everything, that should be everything for this side. We're going to move on to the other side and tackle those three. They should be much easier. There's a whole lot less in the way. I'm going to move the camera over there. Alright, so I wanted to give you an up close, kind of show you what we're working with, kind of some of the reasons you need to do some stuff. Basically, you have your coil packs. They're kind of screwed in, bolted in, each one of them, just kind of hold it in place. Then you have your plugs. And then you have your throttle body. So there's one cylinder right here. This next one is right under the throttle body, and there's one right behind it. And a close-up for our other side. This side has more stuff on it, kind of in the way, but basically what you have is your first one's right here, second one's right there, and then your third one is right under the throttle body there. So that's kind of why you need those to kind of get that to work. So we're going to get started and tackle everything. This side's going to be much easier to work on. I've already done the other side, and I wanted to show an up close and kind of go over what I was thinking. So that's kind of clipped. That little centerpiece has to pop up, and then that clip will pop right off. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to start working on this other side, and then we'll catch up.
Alright, so I just want to give you a close-up view to kind of show you what I was looking at. You know, you kind of take this throttle body off, set it to the side, and then you have access to 1, 2, 3 coil packs, and yeah, just makes it so you can get them off. You don't really have a choice. There's no way to finagle them. The room in here is between the bottom of this and this is maybe 1.5 inches, so there's no way you're getting it out because they have to come straight out. No wiggle room on that. So just taking those off, putting everything back together. Just finished swapping out all 3 spark plugs on this side. They looked good. The old ones that came out, put some new ones in, NICs, tightened them down, put the spark plug boots / coil packs back on. And so now I just have to plug up the coil packs, put the throttle body back on, and then we're going to put back on the intake tubes. And once we put back on the intake tubes, what I'm going to do before I put everything else back on is start it up, make sure it's running good. That way you don't put it all back together, have an issue, and then you have to come back and try to figure it out. So basically that's what we're going to do. I just have to snug everything up and we should be able to move on. Alright, so I'm working on snugging this stuff back down real quick. Basically, I have to plug up all of the evap stuff, and you know, basically just meaning like this tube for the front here is evap stuff. So gotta plug that up. That way you don't get a code once you put everything back on. And again, I have to plug up these mass airflow sensors. So I'm basically just leaving everything kind of rough, and then we are gonna crank it up and make sure that we are good to go as far as that goes. So I'm gonna wash my hands real quick and then we're gonna crank it up. Alright, so I washed my hands and I am going to get in here and start it. Make sure it's working. Well, can't start it without plugging the battery back up. So let's tackle that real quick. Not very smart of me, but that is real life. There we go. Look at that. I think it'll start now. Alright, so it's running. Sounds like it's pretty good. All I'm going to do now is finish snugging everything up. It was starting to get warm pretty quick, so we are going to cut it off before it gets too hot. And then we should be good to go.
Okay, so two things that I remembered what I was going to tell you were that when I was taking off the coil pack connectors on this side, I was trying to lift that little prong up like I was telling you on the last side, and the only way I could really get it off was the 2 screwdriver method. Like I said, I put 2 screwdrivers towards the ends at the top and kind of just wiggle them, and it just, just easily, and then they pop free, no breaking of anything. They all snap back in right. So I tried lifting it up. I couldn't get anything to lift it up. I don't know if that's the right way or whatever, but I tried the other way that I was thinking in my head of lifting the little tab up and then just being able to slide it off using a small screwdriver or something, but that just didn't work. And then also, I know that I took off the bolts for the intake cover and stuff like that with the power tools, but what I'm going to do is put those back on by hand because the threads that are in the intake here, let me take this off, you could easily mess these up. You could easily strip that out or strip these out. So I did use power to take them off to make things a little bit faster, but I mean it would be so easy to unthread that from the plastic, and then then they don't tighten down and it kind of becomes a nuisance. Then your covers are rattling and stuff like this, and so just best, I mean I guess you could leave this off, but these 4 at the ends here, this one, that one, and that one are going to be sticking up. So I don't know, that's up to you. I know a lot of people with the older DEs and stuff like that, they take that off, and I guess maybe it's not as big of a deal, but I'm going to go ahead and stick everything back on until, I think whenever you do like a plenum space or something like that, they don't really fit back on, but this is totally stock. I'm just trying to do basic maintenance. So those are the 2 things I was trying to remember to tell you, and yeah, thanks again.